Hey guys, it's been a long time since I made one of these videos about my tropical fruit tree experiment here. I think it's been almost 2 years, maybe more than 2 years. I'm so sorry I haven't done more. I really wanted to post more videos. Didn't happen, but it's 2019. It's March, and I wanted to give you guys an update. A lot of people have been asking me. Before I get into that, I just want to say that I don't live here anymore. This isn't going to be my garden for much longer. I'm selling the place. I've moved to Hawaii, and a big part of the reason for that was I wanted to actually grow tropical fruits for real and not just experiment with them. So you know, you'll probably be seeing more videos from me about what I'm doing in Hawaii, but that's not this video. This video we're going to talk about my garden here in Los Gatos, Northern California, Zone 9B. And a lot's happened since the last video. There's been some experiments that I planted after the last video that have already died. I don't know if I'll be able to remember everything. I've killed a lot of trees. I planted a lot of new trees that are still here. And so let's just start walking around, and I'll just start showing you some of the stuff that's still alive. Let's start with the one that I'm most excited about. That's the Starfruit tree here. Now it's March, so we're coming to the end of winter here. It's actually spring already. And so this tree's been through winter. Now I haven't been here for 2 months, but people tell me that it's rained a lot, but it hasn't been that cold. And I can tell walking around this winter, we haven't had too many severe frosts here. And this tree's looking pretty darn good. At this point, you know, it's been here for 3 years. It's been through 3 winters. This is the heart variety. I got it from Top Tropicals. It's looking pretty great. This tree usually will drop most of its leaves over the course of the winter. This year it's still hanging on to a lot. If you shake it, you'll see some leaves flying off. No, it's holding on pretty well. So I'm pretty optimistic about Starfruit in the Bay Area here. I think that if I were to be living here for a few more years, I would expect to be getting fruit from this tree. Actually, it did flower for the first time last year, kind of late in the year. It's questionable if flowers can get through the winter, even if the tree does. I think it's typical for Starfruit to flower in the winter, which is kind of a problem, but there are ways to overcome that. So yeah, thumbs up for Starfruit. Now, I want to take you over to show you my Longan tree. A lot of people have asked me about the Longan tree, and well, here it is, guys. That's where the Longan tree was. It's no longer there. Yes, the Longan tree succumbed last year. You might remember the previous winter of 27-18. If you live here, you remember it was a weird winter. There were almost no frosts until late February. Then all of a sudden, late February and March, we got a bunch of frost. Prior to that, it was pretty warm. And what that did was it triggered some of these trees to start growing. And the Longan tree started growing in January, and then it got hit by frost, and it really didn't like that. And it just died. You know, my opinion is that Longan is doable here, but you're going to need probably to protect it a little bit, especially in weird situations like that. So because it did come through the previous 2 winters before that, where we had actually much worse frosts earlier in the winter, it got through those frosts without much of a problem. So let's not give up on Longan just yet. Let's take a look at my one surviving mango tree. Again, 3 years this mango tree has been here. When I first bought it, it was much taller. You can see these stakes. Yeah, it was way up to the top of those stakes when I brought it here from Orange County. But it's still alive, and despite all of this burn, there's still some green, and it'll probably grow back. I know a few people have managed to get fruit out of mangoes up here in the Bay Area with the right variety. So yeah, if you're willing to protect the mango, kind of like with the Longan, it'll do fine. That's why I'm so surprised the Starfruit tree has hung on here without any protection at all. Haven't done a thing, and it's doing great. Now, Jaboticabas, that's something I've really gotten into. Let me tell you, these trees love it here. They look beautiful. The cold can do absolutely nothing to them. I mean, sometimes you'll see on this one, this is a Trunciflora species. See the leaves are a little dark, little mottled, little red, purplish tinge to them. That's something that some of these trees will get in the winter, and they'll drop those leaves, and then they'll just keep on growing. I've got a bunch, and I have gotten fruit. I've gotten fruit from a number of these trees. We look up close at this one here, you can see those little bumps? Those little bumps, those are flowers. Yeah, this tree's fruiting, and it did produce a few fruit last year. And they were quite good. And there's a number of trees around the Bay Area that are fruited as well. So I see no reason why anyone should not plant Jaboticabas. And I planted a lot of them, all different varieties. Here's the Plinia aureana, the white Jaboticaba. Totally different leaves. Look at those big leaves. Completely different. So, all right, that's Jaboticaba. Let's go talk about Cherimoyas and Atemoyas, because that's something I've really gotten into. I think I've got about 30, 25 to 30 or so Cherimoya and Atemoya trees here. You'll see right now that they're not holding a lot of leaves. There's some leaves on some of these way up at the top, and they're not looking too good. When I first got here a week ago, I came down to the garden. And when I had left, when I was last here, these trees were very lush, totally covered in leaves. And the first thing I thought was, they're dead. They're totally dead. But when I looked up close, you could see, let me find an example here. When I looked up close, I could see that the buds here are alive. If I scratch the cambium, it's green. You can see. So these trees are alive. They are stressed. It was a very rainy winter. But look at all this fruit. You see? This is actually an Atemoya tree, African pride. There's still some fruit hanging. It's a little bit damaged by the cold, and some of them, like this one over here, look at all these are basically mummies. See, they turn purple, and these fruits aren't going to make it. I don't think. I'm pretty sure they're not going to be edible. But I did hand pollinate my trees this year. That's why there was quite a lot of fruit on them, and I was really excited to eat that fruit. And I actually had some friends come when I wasn't here and picked some fruit, and it was okay. Getting good quality fruit out of Anonas here requires probably a little protection of the fruits themselves to keep frost off them. And you know, in a rainy year like this year, the trees obviously aren't going to be happy. Here's a good example. This is an Atemoya tree. And see right here that bud in the center. That's where a new leaf is going to come out, where one is previously dropped. And they'll drop their leaves apparently when they're really stressed because it's very wet. And they don't so much like being cold and wet at the same time. I lost the first two Cherimoya trees that I planted 3 winters ago when it was really rainy. You guys might remember the year the drought ended. It was really rainy. It wasn't that cold, but the Cherimoya trees died. So but there's quite a lot of different responses to the cold. Like this tree here still has quite a lot of leaves. This tree here still has quite a lot of leaves. We've got some more over here hanging on to leaves. So Cherimoyas can definitely be grown here, but they're going to require a little bit of attention to the fruit when it's trying to ripen. All right here in front of me, we got the Grumichama, Eugenia brasiliensis. I've had this tree here also for 3 winters, and you'll notice there's a whole lot of bushy growth down at the bottom, and then it's a little kind of sparse moving up the tree. The first winter I had this year, it got hit pretty hard by the 28-degree cold, and a lot of the upper parts of the tree died off, and you can see the tree's looking really good down here at the bottom. Very lush, very green, not burned at all, and you see it's actually growing right now. So Grumichama is weird. It doesn't seem to like the most extreme colds that we get, but this one pulled through. I have another one in a pot that actually did fruit. I got to taste the fruit here. So yeah, Grumichama, another one that's doable. Let's go take a look at the cinnamon tree. This is a weird case. Cinnamon tree. It just doesn't grow much. And it got burned really bad. Every year it gets burned and it kind of shrinks. But it's been here again for 3 winters, 3 solid years. And it's definitely gotten smaller. Here, look, this whole branch over here. See those black twigs? That's going to have to be cut off. So I would say cinnamon is kind of a waste of time in this spot. It's kind of cool to have. When people come for a garden tour, I will take off one of these leaves and have them scratch and sniff. The leaves smell great. They smell like cinnamon. So it's a fun tree to have for that novelty, but I'm not expecting that this tree would turn into something you could harvest the cinnamon spice from. See, most of the girth on the tree happened before I got it when it was in Florida. Since I've had it those 3 years, it hasn't really grown much at all. The one that has is the Allspice. Ooh, Allspice is a winner. This tree loves it here. Look, it's growing right now. Look at those beautiful colors. Great tree, smells amazing. You do need a male and a female. So I only have one here, so it probably wouldn't produce any of the allspice berries unless I got another tree. But the leaves are really useful. They smell great. You can make a tea out of them and stuff. Great tree to have. Really excited about the allspice tree. Here's a tropical guava my friend Kyle in Phoenix gave me. I've got another one. Guava's here. Yeah, guava's here can work. See how the leaves have all turned purple. They don't like the cold, but they seem to pull through okay. I've had this here 2 winters, and the other one as well, 2 winters. The guava's kind of doable, but you know, from what I've heard from people who have grown guavas here, the fruits, because they do tend to ripen during the winter, they don't develop a lot of sugar content. They're not very good. So I'm not that excited, to be honest, about guava in the Bay Area, even if it can grow. Here's my other guava tree. It looks like heck, but it's alive. And here's something unexpected. This little tree here is peanut butter fruit, Bunchosia. You may have heard of peanut butter fruit. I always thought of it as very tropical. I got this tree 3 years ago from Southern California, and it's done very well in the winter time. First year I kept it in a greenhouse. Last 2 years it's been here in the ground outside. And you can see, again, down low, like the Grumichama, the color of the leaves is nice and green and healthy. As you move up the tree, it's a little yellower, more chlorotic. Seems these leaves were exposed to the cold a little bit more, but they held on. And so if you get the right type of peanut butter fruit, you might have some success. I actually had another one I got from Florida that was probably a different species from this one. I planted that the first year I did this experiment 3 years ago, and that just died very quickly when we got some frost. That was probably a different species. The weird thing about peanut butter fruit is it flowers. This tree flowers like crazy every year, a couple times a year. Never set any fruit. In the 3 summers I've had it, not a single fruit, but many flowers. So you might need multiple trees for pollination. I don't really know what the story is exactly. Okay, this little stick here is my ice cream bean, Inga Fiulii. I had another one here that was in this spot last year that got very tall and then died over the winter. This one, oh, there isn't much going on it. Scratch the canium. Yeah, it's alive. It dropped all its leaf. It's really wilting up here, but it's alive. I bet you it comes back. It did get through last winter, while the one next to it that grew much faster did not survive. That one did, and so yeah, ice cream bean. I have a couple friends who've gotten fruit from ice cream bean in the Bay Area, so if you get the right one, really fun tree to grow. Let's go back to the tree I was standing in front of a minute ago, the macadamia. Look at this beautiful tree. Huge. Might be the biggest fruit tree on my whole property here. Macadamia has 0 qualms about the cold here. It's been through 7 winters now here. And look at this. Look at that. Macadamia nuts. See that? 1, 2, 3. Those are the only 3 nuts in the whole tree. See all these? These are flowers coming on for this year. This year's flowers. And there are thousands and thousands of them. The tree flowers abundantly and it produces very few nuts, unfortunately, so far. It might be that you need multiple trees to get better pollination. I have seen a lot of bees on the macadamia nut flowers. Bees seem to like the tree, so I don't think that's the problem. But it is a beautiful tree, and look at this new growth. It's like it's on fire or something. There's 0 reason not to grow a macadamia nut tree here, unless you're in one of those weird low-lying Bay Area spots that gets down into the low 20s. But here in the sort of middle of the road Bay Area climates, yeah, macadamia is a winner. All right, these things that are leaning all over the place. This is tree tomato. Tree tomato definitely can be grown here. You can see this one here is starting to grow again. They They've taken a little damage. Looks like a little burn on the trunk of this one. I've got a whole bunch. Actually, I've got a much nicer looking one over here that's still in a pot. In this, under the canopy of these trees, see, they seem to really like the shade. Look how much better this one looks with just a little bit more shade. Tree tomato. So my advice to you is if you grow tree tomato here, and you should, because they definitely grow and produce a lot of fruit here and they survive most winters, although they sometimes look ugly. If you can give it a lot of shade like this, not only in the winter, but in the summer as well, they will love you and they'll produce a lot. It's definitely a shade loving tree. So, and look at that. Look how happy and healthy this tree is. All right, tree tomato. Here's my sugarcane. Yeah, sugarcane is very hardy. I've harvested a number of canes over the years that have had this. You see this one is a red variety. This one's getting close maybe to being able to harvest it. Probably not quite yet. Yeah, sugarcane's very hardy, though we think of it as a tropical thing. There's no reason not to grow it here. Now right over here I want to show you this little guy. This is Wampi. Wampi is related to citrus, and the fruit kind of tastes like a grapefruit. It's a little more subtropical, and well, it doesn't look too unhappy right now. But last year this tree was way up here and it shrunk way down here. It got burned back really bad, and you can see the stump right there where I had to cut it back. That happens sometimes for reasons that are hard to explain some years, because it wasn't that cold last winter. So Wampi is right on the edge of being easy to grow here. All right, let's take a look at my bananas. I had 3 racks of bananas on this last year, and 4 actually. I had 4, and I was wondering whether they would survive the winter without getting burned. And I think the answer is yes. These fruit are gonna ripen up, and there's 1, 2, there's another rack right there. That's a little more mature. That's probably close. Then we got an even younger one over here. And these banana leaves really tell the story of the winter. I love bananas in the way that they tell you how cold it got. See how they're still green on these leaves? If we had had a serious frost, there wouldn't be a single hint of green on this banana. It'd be all black. All the leaves would look kind of like this. So this tells me right here, it wasn't that cold this winter, and that's why the bananas are able to ripen. This down here, this is Monstera deliciosa. Very iconic leaf. You often see it in like things that are trying to communicate a tropical feel. You'll see the Monstera leaf. And again, look how green that Monstera leaf is. If we had a hard frost, they'd be black. The whole thing would be trying to grow back from the ground. So yeah, this is a good winter for tropical experiments for sure. Psidium cattleyanum, lemon guava. Sometimes you can buy this one in local nurseries, or they'll call it strawberry guava for the red fruit version. This is the yellow fruited version. You can see how healthy it is. This plant can take a lot of cold. This here I'm very excited about. This is Kwai Muk. Kwai Muk, if you haven't heard of it, it is an artocarpus. What is the most famous artocarpus? Well, that would be jackfruit. So Kwai Muk is a jackfruit relative from, I guess it must be some cooler spots in southern China, and I think maybe parts of North Vietnam, something like that. And I'd heard it was very cold tolerant, so I got one and planted it. You can see this one has a nice fat trunk. It's got some bark. Very slow growing, but look how well it's come through the winter. It's still holding a lot of leaves, only a little bit of black spotting on the leaves. So yeah, Kwai Muk definitely has a lot of potential here. Very exciting. Now this thing right here that looks dead and might actually be dead is Amla. Very prized fruit in India. Amla is a very sour fruit, I think sometimes called Indian gooseberry or something like that. And Amla was growing really well, and look how thick the trunk is. But I think it may, yeah, I'm scratching the bark here. I think it might be gone. Very sad. I thought maybe, I heard Amla could take some cold, and it did get through last winter. But yeah, that's a failure right there most likely. Let's go take a look at the green sapotes. I've got 2 green sapotes. I had killed one the first year of this experiment, but I got a few more. And here's one. Not a whole lot of leaves left on it, but it's clearly alive. You can see if you look at the buds here, they're clearly about to grow back. This one is actually grafted down here. This one came from Florida, and in Florida they like to graft this tree to Mamey Sapote rootstock because that does better in Florida soil. Now here, Mamey Sapote is a terrible rootstock because it's very cold sensitive. So that's why I have this other green sapote that I planted right here. This one is not grafted. It's a seedling. It's a little older. You can see how fat the trunk is. And yeah, it's just starting to wake up. This tree seems to do a lot of its growing in the early spring. Loves the cold here. Not a problem at all. Dropped a few leaves. It's a little sparse on the leaves right now, but I don't think that's going to be a problem. Now, this is a really good spot for a subtropical tree because if you look up, I've got this big oak tree on top of us, and that provides a degree of frost protection. And I've got it right up against this native sage plant. So this spot is maybe a little warmer than the rest of the yard on a cold night. But I would definitely recommend people try it and grow green sapote. And like I said, if you can get one that isn't grafted, so don't order it from Top Tropicals or Plantagram or one of those Florida nurseries. Try to go down to Southern California and find one. It's not easy, but it can be done. Now this guy here, this is actually 3 trees in one hole. This is Lucuma, relative of the green sapote. And Lucuma definitely has no problem at all with our winters. You wouldn't even know that it was March. Kind of looks the same as it did in August. I planted 3 trees close together because I heard there were pollination issues with Lucuma. Plenty of people in the Bay Area over the years have grown trees that have gotten real big and flowered, never made any fruit. We don't know why, but you know, often the first guess is some pollination rules that the tree wants you to follow aren't being followed when you just have one tree. One of these trees back here did start to flower. I don't think the flowers hung on, but the tree was flowering. I mean, look at that. This tree doesn't mind the cold at all. They come from the high elevation Andes in, I think, Peru and Chile and that area. So this is a great fruit for here. Speaking of high elevation native plants from South America, this right here is mountain papaya, Vasconcelia pubescens. This plant is about 1 year old, grown from seed. And look, I mean, come on. Look at how happy it is. Look at those leaves, not a hint of cold damage. And this is a plant that is, you would think it'd be very tender because it's kind of a succulent, you know, like papayas are succulent plants, but it feels very sturdy down here in the trunk. Look at that, it's kind of got a bulge here like it's about to fatten up. Very exciting, mountain papaya. Don't be fooled, it doesn't really taste like a papaya. It's a small aromatic fruit. Tastes okay, but looks cool. It's gonna be beautiful when it's tall and loaded with fruit. Right next to it, one of my white sapotes. I've got a couple more. White sapote, I won't cover it too much in this video because it's pretty well established that you can grow this easily here, much like citrus, its relative. This thing down here is a canistel or egg fruit. See the leaves down there look pretty good. However, this is the trunk of the tree I purchased, which was way up here. Actually started to decline last summer and the top died. That's why I cut it there. And it's growing back from there. So I don't think canistel is really worth growing here, even though this one might have some cold tolerance. I just don't, I haven't gotten the sense like I have from Lucuma and green sapote that this tree is happy to be here. But maybe I'll dig it up and give it to someone in a warmer place. Under here, right here underneath this sage, this big bushy sage, I have a Mamey Sapote that I grew from seed 3 years ago. It grew really well and it held on okay in my greenhouse the first year. The next year I think I kept it in my garage or something. And then I planted it last year thinking, what the heck, nothing to lose. And I planted in a spot that I thought would be really frost protected, but not enough. It's dead. That's why I'm telling you, this is not a good rootstock for other members of the Poteria genus. It really doesn't like the cold. It's a pretty tropical plant. Barely, it makes it through in Southern California, but just barely. And here is a dead Ilama, a relative of the Cherimoya that makes a pink fruit. It's looking pretty dead. This one is actually grafted to Cherimoya. You can see the graft union right here. And the rootstock is alive. See? See that? The Cherimoya is alive. The grafted Ilama is not. Yeah, Ilama wants a much, much warmer climate. All right, on to happier news. Let's look at my Eugenias over here. Eugenia is, and really much of the Myrtaceae that Eugenias and Jaboticabas belong to, are really great for this area. Really a lot of exciting plants in that family that come from some of the southern areas of Brazil that get some cold. Feijoa, a very popular plant here, part of that family. And so let's look at some of the Eugenias I have here. This is Pitangatuba, Eugenia Soloi. And look at the leaves. Most of the leaves are very dark and reddish. A common thing that these plants in this family will do during the winter. It did this last winter and got jet black. And that's really not a sign the plant's dying. It's fine. It'll come right back. And probably around July, it'll be nice and green and all these dark leaves will drop off. So yeah, Pitangatuba, easy to do here. Here's Cherry of the Rio Grande. This tree has been here for a while now. Never minded the cold at all. It's great, perfect tree for here. And I've gotten so many fruits from this last year. Tons, hundreds of fruits, really good. I've gotten more fruits from the Cherry of the Rio Grande than my real cherry trees, which have struggled due to pollination issues. And here we have right next to it, a close relative that we're calling Eugenia calycina, though there's talk that this may actually be the same species as the Cherry of the Rio Grande, the Eugenia involucrata. I'm not really sure yet. The fruit is very similar, but sort of more elongated. And this tree loves it here. It grows really fast growing tree. Produced fruit when it was 4 years old. Right next to it is the Guabiju, which is not technically a Eugenia. It's Myrcianthes pungens. This is a great tree. If I were going to continue living here, I would evangelize Guabiju. Even though I've yet to taste it, it comes from the same area of southern Brazil and Uruguay that the Feijoa comes from. It makes a little fruit that's kind of looks like a Jaboticaba. People who've tasted it tell me it tastes kind of like a Jaboticaba. And it's a gorgeous tree. And when it starts growing during the cooler parts of the year, which should be happening very soon here, it has like a rainbow effect to the foliage. They're all different colors of like red and purple and yellow and green. Beautiful tree. Maybe the only drawback is these needles. See the needles on the tips of the leaves? They're not going to stab you or anything, but when you walk near this tree and brush up against it, it will scratch you a little bit, kind of like a cat lovingly scratching you to say, hey, come eat me, come eat my fruit. This tree is about 4 or 5 years old. It grows really well. I would highly recommend, if you're looking for something unusual to grow in Northern California, that you try to find yourself a Guabiju. Google it. Maybe you can find seeds somewhere, because nobody really propagates this tree commercially. You can't buy it anywhere. I had to grow this one myself from seed. Now, tucked here in the landscaping under this protea that's about to go off with flowers, got another Grumichama. This is a yellow-fruited Grumichama. And it looks pretty happy. There's a little bit of ugliness on some of the leaves. But again, Grumichama just seems to be just barely able to get by here. And unless we had a really hard frost, I think it would just keep growing and probably eventually fruit. All right, on the other side of the yard here, I want to show you, first of all, this tree is Jambolan, syzygium. Syzygium plant. A lot of people know Jambolan. I've yet to taste this fruit, but apparently it can handle the cold. It's doing really well. It grows really fast. Kind of an ornamental tree. Nice, pretty leaves. And here's another syzygium, close relative of the Jambolan, the rose apple. Now I tried growing a wax jambu here the first year, think I showed that in the video, the first video. Wax jambu is very tropical. They died very quickly when it got below 40. Now rose apple is kind of a similar fruit to the wax jambu. I've yet to taste it. I know, I'm growing a lot of stuff that I've never tasted, but people who have tasted rose apple tell me it has a strong rose flavor and a texture, spongy texture, similar to wax jambu. And as you can see, rose apple is definitely cut out for our climate here. Despite the ugliness on some of the higher up leaves, this tree really thrives here and it grows very fast during the summer. Much like Jambolan over here. Great choices for the Bay Area. As the fun one, this palm, I think I only have 2 palms on the whole property. This palm here is the Bolivian mountain coconut, Parajubea terralii. And it's definitely well cut out for this climate. A number of people have fruited this around Northern California. It makes a coconut that's small, maybe like tennis ball size or a little bigger. Doesn't have any water in it, but it has a little bit of meat. I don't think you're gonna be like gorging on Bolivian mountain coconuts at any point if you grow this, but you'll get a few here and there. You might wanna crack them open and tell everyone about your cool coconut palm that you grew. And it is a very ornamental plant. I saw a mature one, and this trunk down here is gonna get very fat. And I'm a little concerned for this wall right here. I have a feeling that in 10 years, the trunk of this palm is gonna be busting open the wall. Purple passion fruit, passiflora edulis. Absolutely zero qualms with the cold weather. Barely even looks ugly. It's a little bit of ugliness. This has been here for 4 or 5 years now. And I've been told, you know, you usually get 6 or 7 years out of one of these before it starts to get some kind of disease issue from being like overgrown and like poor airflow in between the vines. So this vine probably has 2 or 3 more years left to grow, and boy does it crank out the fruit. I was telling you about my mountain papaya earlier. Well, this stick here with some fruit hanging off of it is Babaco, another Vasconcelia or mountain papaya species. And boy, did it look beautiful when it had leaves. But it didn't seem to like the excess rain that they were getting here, and it dropped all its leaves. But you can see at the top, it's growing new ones. It's not dead. It's got a few fruits hanging on, although they've been dropping. These may or may not ripen up, usually around June. Mountain papaya and Babaco fruits will ripen up. Now, one of the parents of Babaco is that mountain papaya I was showing you earlier, because this is a hybrid. Vasconcelia pubescens is one of the parents. And this is actually, the other parent must be more tropical, because Babaco is definitely more cold sensitive than the mountain papaya, as you can see, obviously. But just barely hanging on. So again, we're kind of under that oak tree canopy here. The spot is a little more cold protected. So if you want to grow Babaco here, I would recommend a little cold protection if you can give it. Just a little bit. Don't have to be like putting a, propane heater next to it or anything. Just a little bit will get it to sneak through the winter, and you'll be eating fruit in summer. All right, I'm going to end this video with this tree that is probably dead, and that little thing is a jackfruit. Yes, I did attempt to grow a jackfruit in Northern California. I didn't expect it to work, but it did get through one winter, barely last year. It got through. This year, probably not. And that explains maybe why I've decided to move to Hawaii. I really love members of the Artocarpus family. The jackfruit is from Chempedak. A lot of amazing fruits in that family that simply are not going to grow here. You'll be lucky if you get Kwai Muk, the tree I showed you earlier, to fruit. And that's not nearly as tasty as jackfruit. So yeah, don't bother trying to grow jackfruit here unless you don't mind killing it like I did. All right, I think that's pretty much everything. I think I've covered everything that was in the last video and shown you how it's done. Here in front of my Hass avocado tree, which is quite loaded with fruit this year. And if I were to continue living here, I probably wouldn't continue experimenting as much with the tropicals, especially not things like the jackfruit and the Mamey Sapote that I knew were going to die. I mean, it's nice to test the limits. But avocados, white sapote, Jaboticaba, it's about as tropical as you can get away with here and get good productivity. Because it's really all about that, right? we want to grow fruit. We want to eat fruit from our trees. If you're a plantsman and just like to grow plants, and I've probably become a little bit of that over the years, you know, not always about the fruits, sometimes just about the plants, then yeah, go ahead and do these experiments. I hope that this video has given you some insight into what you can expect, and you know, I hope people keep trying, and I love seeing people's results. And I'll be in Hawaii actually growing and eating these fruits. One thing I won't be growing and eating there is apples or pears or any of those things. So you kind of got to appreciate what you can grow easily in wherever you are. And this place is an amazing place to grow fruit once you know what its limits are. And I've certainly learned that over the last 3 years of this experiment. So thanks guys for watching, and I'll be coming back to you soon from Hawaii as I'm building my new farm there from scratch. It's going to be really a lot of work, very fun. I can't wait to make some videos and show you guys what we're doing out there.